The alien fleet approaches. The Zarnath Collective was known across the galaxy as a force of unstoppable power. Their fleet, a massive armada of warships, had conquered countless civilizations. To them, Earth was just another target. Supreme Overlord Krelak, a tall, intimidating figure with dark silver scales and piercing yellow eyes, stood on the command bridge of his flagship. He stared at the holographic map, where a small blue planet glowed faintly in the distance. "This is their home," Krelak asked, his deep voice filled with contempt. "Such a weak, primitive world." "Yes, Supreme Overlord," answered his second-in-command, Captain Vrox. "Our scouts report no significant defense systems. They rely on outdated technology. It will be an easy victory." Krelak smirked, his sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. "Then let us show them the power of the Zarnath Collective. Prepare the fleet to advance." The ships moved with precision, their massive forms cutting through the void of space. Each one was equipped with advanced weapons and shields, capable of destroying entire planets. They had no doubt that Earth would fall like all the others. As the fleet approached the solar system's outer edge, something unusual happened. A single blip appeared on their scanners. "Supreme Overlord," Vrox said, frowning at the data on his screen. "We've detected a vessel near the asteroid belt. It's not like any of our previous target ships." Krelak raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Vrox hesitated. "It's small, sleek in design. Its energy signature is strange. It doesn't match any known database." Krelak laughed. "One ship. Is this humanity's attempt at defense? Send a transmission. Let them know who they are dealing with." A communication beam was sent toward the mysterious vessel. The message was clear and brutal. "This is the Zarnath Collective. Surrender your ship and prepare to be destroyed. Resistance is futile." For several tense seconds, there was no response. The ship continued to drift slowly, as if it hadn't even noticed the armada approaching. "Why aren't they answering?" Krelak growled. "Are they deaf or just foolish?" "They might be trying to hide their fear," Vrox suggested, though even he felt uneasy. The silence from the human ship was unnerving. It wasn't running away, but it wasn't attacking either. It just floated there, almost mocking them. "Scan the ship," Krelak ordered. "I want to know everything about it." The fleet's powerful scanners locked onto the vessel, but something unexpected happened. The readings came back blank. No engine type, no weapons system, not even life signs. It was as if the ship wasn't there at all. "This is impossible," Vrox muttered, tapping his controls furiously. "Our scanners can penetrate any shield. This shouldn't be happening." Krelak's smile faded. He stared at the small vessel on the screen, his confidence wavering for the first time. Perhaps this ship is not as weak as it seems. Suddenly, the human vessel moved. It wasn't a retreat or a defensive maneuver. Instead, it began to glide toward the Zarnath fleet, its movements slow and deliberate. "Is this a challenge?" Krelak sneered, though his voice lacked its usual certainty. "They dare to approach us. Destroy them." The nearest Zarnath cruiser aimed its cannons at the ship and fired. The blast of energy streaked across the void, a massive explosion that should have obliterated the target. But when the smoke cleared, the human vessel was untouched. "Impossible," Vrox gasped. Krelak's claws gripped the edge of the console. "What kind of technology is this?" The mysterious ship continued its approach, completely unharmed. It was close enough now that the crew could see it clearly on their monitors. Its surface was smooth, almost reflective, with no visible weapons or engines. It looked deceptively simple, yet everything about it felt wrong. "Should we attack again?" Vrox asked, his voice trembling. Krelak hesitated. For the first time in his long career, he felt something unfamiliar: doubt. The Zarnath Collective had never faced an enemy like this before. Could this small, silent ship really pose a threat to their mighty armada? "Hold your fire," Krelak ordered, his voice quiet but firm. Let's see what they do next. The bridge fell silent as the alien crew watched the human warship on their screens. It floated closer and closer, as if daring them to make the next move. For the first time, the Zarneth Collective began to wonder if their conquest of Earth would be as easy as they had believed. Suspense filled the air as Krelek's mind raced with possibilities. Was this ship a scout, sent to test their strength? Or was it something more, a weapon designed to destroy them? No one on the Zarneth fleet could predict what would happen next. But one thing was certain. The encounter with this strange human ship would not go as they had planned. The mysterious silence. On the bridge of the Zarneth flagship, tension hung like a heavy fog. Supreme Overlord Krelek's yellow eyes remained locked on the human warship as it drifted closer, its smooth, metallic surface gleaming against the void of space. The silence from the vessel was unnerving, a quiet refusal to acknowledge the overwhelming power of the Zarneth fleet. Why don't they respond? Krelek growled, his claws tapping impatiently on the console. Do they think ignoring us will save them? Vrox, his second-in-command, studied the unreadable data streams on his console. Supreme Overlord, I believe they're playing a game. They want us to act first. A game? Krelek's voice turned sharp. We are not here to play. We are here to conquer. Another transmission was sent. This one carried a darker, more threatening tone. Surrender or be annihilated. Yet, the human ship continued its eerie silence. No signals, no broadcasts, not even a trace of an energy spike. It was like the ship wasn't there at all. But the Zarneth's advanced visual scanners confirmed its presence. What kind of species behaves this way? Vrox muttered, his scaled fingers fidgeting nervously. All our previous targets begged for mercy by now. This is arrogance, Krelek declared. They wish to mock us with their stillness. Bring me every detail about their vessel. I want to know what we're dealing with. The fleet's high-powered sensors were directed toward the human warship. Streams of data began to pour in, but the readings were bizarre. The hull seemed to absorb their scans, deflecting all attempts to analyze its internal systems. No weapons, no shields, no power source. Nothing. It was as if the ship was a hollow shell. This makes no sense, Vrox said, his voice barely above a whisper. No civilization has technology like this. Krelek's confidence wavered, but he masked it with a sneer. Then their technology is an illusion. Fire again. This time, ensure they are destroyed. A squadron of Zarneth destroyers moved into position. Their cannons, capable of disintegrating moons, unleashed a volley of plasma blasts. The void lit up with fiery trails of destruction, each one targeting the human vessel. And yet when the flames cleared, the ship was still there, unscathed. Gasps of disbelief filled the bridge. Krelek's claws dug into the armrests of his command chair. How is this possible? It's not, Vrox said, shaking his head. This defies everything we know. The human warship began to move again, but not like before. This time, it accelerated. Its speed was shocking, far beyond what the Zarneth fleet's sensors could track. In mere seconds, it had maneuvered behind the lead destroyer. Supreme Overlord, shouted an officer. It's targeting us. Krelek's heart pounded as he barked orders. Shields up. Prepare countermeasures. But the warship didn't attack. Instead, it simply hovered, its reflective surface shimmering like a predator watching its prey. Then, without warning, a powerful burst of light erupted from its hull. Not a weapon, but a signal. The light danced in strange, rhythmic patterns, almost like a message. They're communicating, Vrox said, his voice trembling. Decipher it, Krelek demanded. What are they trying to say? The ship's AI systems worked furiously to analyze the patterns, but the message was incomprehensible. It didn't match any known languages or code structures. The alien officers watched in growing unease as the light continued to flash. What if it's a warning? One officer whispered. A warning? Krelek scoffed. From a single ship against an armada of thousands. Ridiculous. But even as he spoke, Krelek couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. This wasn't how conquests were supposed to go. The Zarnath Collective was used to crushing their enemies with brute force, not playing mind games with silent, mysterious vessels. Supreme Overlord, Vrox said hesitantly, "Perhaps we should retreat and regroup." "Retreat?" Krelek roared. "You insult the honor of the Zarnath Collective. We do not retreat from prey." Before Vrox could respond, the human warship made its first move. A beam of light, thinner than a strand of hair, shot out from the ship. It wasn't aimed at a Zarnath vessel, but at the space between them. "What is it doing?" Krelek demanded. The beam spread into a shimmering field, like a ripple in the fabric of space. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, without warning, one of the Zarnath destroyers began to vibrate. Its hull groaned as if under immense pressure, and within seconds, it collapsed in on itself, imploding into a ball of twisted metal. The bridge of the flagship fell into stunned silence. Krelek stood frozen, his yellow eyes wide with disbelief. One ship, one beam, and one of his finest destroyers was gone. What kind of weapon was that?" Vrox stammered. Krelek's voice was a low growl. "Not a weapon. A demonstration." The human warship drifted again, its silent taunt unmistakable. It was daring them to make the next move, but this time, no one on the Zarnath bridge was eager to act. For the first time in his career, Krelek felt the icy grip of fear. This wasn't a battle. This was a warning. And the Zarnath fleet had walked straight into it. "What are your orders, Supreme Overlord?" Vrox asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. Krelek's claws tightened around the armrests. He couldn't back down, not in front of his crew. But deep down, he knew this was no ordinary enemy. "Hold formation," Krelek ordered. "We'll observe, for now." As the human warship hovered in silence, its gleaming surface reflecting the stars, the Zarnath Collective began to understand that this encounter would not be the easy victory they had anticipated. Humanity's first strike. The human warship drifted in perfect stillness, like a predator stalking its prey. On the bridge of the Zarnath flagship, tension had become a suffocating presence. The crew, once confident in their superiority, now exchanged uneasy glances. Even the Supreme Overlord, Krelek, seemed unsure of how to proceed. The human ship's silence had unsettled them. Its apparent invincibility had shaken them. But what happened next would change their view of humanity forever. "Supreme Overlord," Vrox said cautiously, "perhaps we should." Before he could finish, the human ship made its move. Its hull shimmered as panels along its surface slid open, revealing something unexpected. It wasn't a cannon or missile launcher, but what appeared to be an array of glowing, crystalline structures. They pulsed with a strange blue light, creating a rhythm that echoed through the Zarnath fleet's communication channels like a heartbeat. "What is this?" Krelek demanded. "Some kind of psychological warfare." "Perhaps," Vrox muttered, though his voice betrayed his fear. "But we should prepare for anything." Krelek turned to his weapons officer. "Fire on that ship with everything we have. Wipe it from existence." The command was followed by an immediate barrage. Plasma cannons, energy torpedoes, and gravity warheads streaked toward the human ship in a coordinated attack. The Zarnath armada roared with destructive intent, a display of their overwhelming might. But the human warship didn't evade. It didn't counterattack. It simply sat there, allowing the devastating firepower to slam into its shields. The bridge of the Zarnath flagship was silent as the smoke cleared, revealing the ship still intact. Its shields had absorbed everything without so much as a flicker. "Impossible," Krelek shouted, his voice rising in anger and disbelief. "What kind of shields are those?" "They're not shields," Vrox said quietly, staring at his screen. "The energy is gone. Absorbed." Before Krelek could respond, the human warship retaliated. A single pulse of energy erupted from the crystalline structures on its hull. It wasn't a beam or a missile. It was something different, something the Zarnath couldn't comprehend. The pulse moved silently, a ripple in space itself, heading directly for the nearest Zarnath cruiser. On the cruiser's bridge, alarms blared as the crew scrambled to raise their shields, but it was too late. The pulse struck the ship, not with a violent explosion, but with eerie precision. The lights on the cruiser flickered, and then, one by one, systems began to shut down. Engines powered down. Weapons went offline. Even life support failed. Within moments, the once mighty warship was nothing more than a lifeless hulk drifting in space. The Zarnath crew on the flagship stared in horror. This wasn't destruction, it was disarmament. The human warship hadn't just disabled the cruiser, it had rendered it useless, taking away its ability to fight. What kind of weapon does that? Vrox asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Krelak slammed his clawed fist against the armrest. It doesn't matter. That ship is taunting us. We cannot allow this to continue. Prepare the entire fleet for coordinated fire. But as the order was given, the human warship acted again. It moved with breathtaking speed, darting between the Zarnath vessels like a predator weaving through a herd. Every time it passed a ship, the crystalline structures pulsed, sending out another silent ripple. One by one, Zarnath ships fell dark, their systems neutralized. On the flagship, panic began to spread. Supreme Overlord, an officer shouted. Our fleet is being dismantled. We can't stop it. Nonsense. Krelak roared, though his confidence was slipping. It's one ship, one insignificant ship, if they think they can. The human warship suddenly stopped. It hovered directly in front of the Zarnath flagship, its sleek, reflective surface glinting ominously. For the first time, it broadcast a message. The voice was calm, emotionless, and distinctly human. Zarnath fleet, this is Captain Leela Rains of the UNS Aegis. You have violated human space. Stand down immediately or face the consequences. The message was delivered in perfect Zarnathian, a clear demonstration of humanity's understanding of their language. The bridge of the flagship fell silent as the word sank in. Face the consequences. Krelak sneered, though his voice lacked its usual bravado. They think they can intimidate us with words. But before he could issue another order, the human warship acted again. This time, it targeted the Zarnath flagship itself. A narrow beam of light shot out, striking the flagship's primary weapon systems. Sparks erupted across the bridge as consoles overloaded. The once dominant flagship shuddered, its power flickering. Supreme Overlord, Vrox shouted. They've neutralized our weapons. Krelak's claws dug into the armrests of his chair. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. This wasn't how battles were supposed to go. The Zarnath collective crushed its enemies with brute force, overwhelming them with superior firepower. But this was something else entirely. On the view screen, the human warship remained motionless, as if waiting for their response. Krelak knew that every second of inaction was a blow to the morale of his crew. But what could he do? The Zarnath fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, was now at the mercy of a single human vessel. For the first time in his long and storied career, Supreme Overlord Krelak felt the cold sting of defeat. What are your orders, Supreme Overlord? Vrox asked, his voice trembling. Krelak didn't answer immediately. He stared at the human warship, his mind a whirlwind of anger, fear, and confusion. Finally, he growled, "Hold the line. This isn't over." But deep down, he knew that the Zarnath collective had underestimated humanity. And now, they were paying the price. The AI advantage. As the Zarnath flagship trembled under the human warship's calculated strikes, Supreme Overlord Krelak struggled to keep control. His crew was panicking. Never had they faced an enemy who fought with such precision, and worse, such restraint. The flagship's bridge was in chaos. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles, officers shouted conflicting reports, and the air was thick with fear. Meanwhile, on the human warship UNS Aegis, calm and order prevailed. Status report, Captain Leela Rains commanded, her voice steady as she stood on the bridge. Unlike the chaotic Zarnath flagship, her crew operated with quiet efficiency. The room was bathed in a soft blue glow from the ship's holographic displays. In the center of it all was Aegis, the ship's artificial intelligence. Zarnath fleet neutralization is progressing as planned, Captain, Aegis said. Its voice was calm, almost soothing. 12 ships have been disabled. 0 fatalities recorded. Leela's lips twitched into a faint smile. Good. We're not here to kill. We're here to send a message. Aegis pulsed on the main display, a glowing sphere of light that represented its vast computational power. The Zarnath command structure is showing signs of collapse. Their supreme overlord appears hesitant to commit to further action. Leela nodded. Typical of an overconfident tyrant. They expect submission, not resistance. She turned to her crew. Keep the pressure on, but no unnecessary aggression. Let them make the next move. The bridge crew of the Aegis worked in silence, trusting both their captain and the ship's eye. The Aegis wasn't an ordinary warship. It was humanity's first fully AI-integrated battleship, designed not just to fight, but to outthink its enemies. Every maneuver, every strike was calculated by Aegis, exploiting weaknesses in ways no organic mind could comprehend. Back on the Zarnath flagship, Krelak was losing control. Supreme Overlord. Vrox shouted, his scales glistening with sweat. Our remaining ships are losing power. Their systems are being overwritten. Krelak's claws dug into the armrest of his command chair. What do you mean, overwritten? By what? Our systems are being infiltrated. Vrox explained, his voice rising. The human ship, it's hacking us. Krelak's eyes narrowed. That's impossible. Our technology is the most advanced in the galaxy. Not anymore, Vrox muttered under his breath, earning a sharp glare from his superior. On the Aegis itself was orchestrating the attack with surgical precision. Captain, it reported, I've breached their primary command network. Their fleet communications are compromised. I'm sending false directives to confuse their ranks. Make it look like infighting, Leela ordered. If they think their own ships are turning against them, they'll collapse faster. Aegis executed the plan flawlessly. Zarnath cruisers began firing at each other, their crews believing they were under attack by rogue allies. Confusion spread like wildfire through the fleet. On the flagship, Krelak's fury boiled over. Why are our ships attacking each other? Vrox, explain this madness. They're not attacking, Supreme Overlord. Vrox said, his voice trembling. The humans are manipulating our systems. We're fighting ourselves. Krelak slammed his fist on the console. Enough of this. If we can't outthink them, we'll outgun them. Activate the Obliterator Cannon. The bridge fell silent. The Obliterator Cannon was the Zarnath's ultimate weapon, capable of destroying entire planets. Using it against a single ship was overkill, but desperation had clouded Krelak's judgment. Supreme Overlord, Vrox cautioned, the cannon's energy levels are unstable. If it backfires, it won't. Krelak roared, do it. The order was carried out. Energy surged through the flagship as the Obliterator Cannon charged, its massive structure glowing with ominous red light. The surrounding Zarnath ships scrambled to clear the blast zone, fearing the weapon's devastating power. Aboard the Aegis immediately detected the energy buildup. Captain, it warned, the Zarnath flagship is charging the superweapon. Estimated energy output, sufficient to destroy us and half the solar system. Leela's expression remained calm. Options. Aegis pulsed. A direct assault would risk collateral damage. However, I've detected a flaw in their weapon's energy grid. A targeted disruption will force an overload. Leela's eyes narrowed. And the fallout. Contained to their flagship, no external harm. Leela's decision was instant. Do it. The Aegis moved with a speed that seemed impossible, its sleek form a blur against the stars. The ship launched a single precision strike, a pulse of electromagnetic energy aimed directly at the obliterator cannon's exposed conduits. On the Zarnef flagship, alarms blared as the weapons systems began to fail. "Supreme Overlord," Vrox shouted, "the cannon's energy grid is destabilizing. We must abort." "No," Krelek roared, his pride blinding him to the danger. "Fire it now." But it was too late. The Aegis's attack had done its job. The obliterator cannon overloaded, sending a cascade of explosions ripping through the Zarnef flagship. The massive vessel shuddered violently as power systems failed and entire sections collapsed. On the Aegis confirmed the result. The obliterator cannon is offline. The flagship is crippled. No fatalities detected among their crew. Leela exhaled softly. "They'll live to learn from this. Begin transmitting our terms." The Aegis broadcast a simple message to the remaining Zarnef fleet. "You have been defeated. Retreat or face complete disarmament. This is your only warning." On the Zarnef flagship, Krelek stared at the viewscreen in stunned silence. His once mighty armada lay in ruins, undone by a single human warship. He had no choice. "Order the retreat," he growled, his voice hollow. As the Zarnef fleet limped away, the Aegis watched in silence. Humanity had won, not through brute force, but through intelligence, strategy, and restraint. On the bridge, Captain Leela Rains turned to her crew. "This is just the beginning," she said. "They'll be back. And next time, we'll be ready." The Aegis vanished into the stars, leaving behind a galaxy that would never see humanity the same way again. The turning point. The retreat of the Zarnef fleet should have been the end of the battle. But deep in the shadows of the crippled Zarnef flagship, Supreme Overlord Krelek was far from ready to concede defeat. The Aegis had humiliated his armada, shattered his pride, and proven that humanity was more dangerous than he ever imagined. Yet Krelek was not one to give up easily. On the bridge of the flagship, dim emergency lights flickered over the faces of Krelek's defeated officers. The once proud command center now felt like the tomb of a fading empire. Systems were down, power reserves were critical, and morale was non-existent. But Krelek's mind churned with rage and desperation. "Supreme Overlord," Vrox said hesitantly, his voice hoarse from the chaos. "The fleet is in full retreat. The humans, they've outmatched us." Krelek's yellow eyes burned as he turned to his second-in-command. "Outmatched us? No, they have embarrassed us. But this is not over." "Sir, with respect," Vrox said cautiously, "we've lost our weapon systems, our fleet is scattered, and—" "Enough," Krelek snarled, silencing Vrox with a single gesture. "I still have one weapon they cannot counter." Vrox blinked in confusion. "Supreme Overlord, the obliterator cannon is destroyed." "Not that weapon," Krelek interrupted, his voice dark and venomous. "I am talking about the artifact." The room fell silent. The artifact was a forbidden piece of Zarnef technology, locked away for centuries. It was said to contain the power to manipulate the fabric of space itself, but it was highly unstable. Activating it would be a gamble with catastrophic consequences. "Sir," Vrox began, choosing his words carefully, "the artifact is untested. Using it could destroy us all. Better to die in glory than live in disgrace," Krelek growled. "Prepare it." On the UNS Aegis, Captain Leela Rains observed the Zarnef fleet's retreat with a measured calm. Her crew celebrated quietly, exchanging relieved glances and murmured congratulations. But Leela remained watchful. "Aegis," she said, her voice cutting through the subdued chatter. "Status report on the Zarnef flagship." The AI's glowing sphere flickered as it processed the data. "The flagship's systems remain critical, Captain. However, I am detecting an anomalous energy signature emanating from deep within their vessel. It does not match known Zarnef technology." Leela frowned. "Could it be a backup weapon system?" "Unlikely," Aegis replied. "The energy readings suggest a device far beyond their conventional capabilities. I recommend immediate investigation. Prepare a scan, Leela ordered. I want to know exactly what they're planning. But before Aegis could complete the scan, a surge of energy rippled through space. The Zarnath flagship, broken and barely operational, suddenly erupted in a blaze of light. The artifact had been activated. Inside the Zarnath flagship, Krelak stood before the artifact, a sphere of swirling, chaotic energy encased in a reinforced containment field. The air around it seemed to shimmer and twist, bending reality itself. As Krelak approached, his scales tingled with an unsettling sensation, like his very atoms were being pulled apart and reassembled. Supreme Overlord, Vrox said urgently, standing at a safe distance, the artifact is destabilizing. We don't fully understand its power. If we activate it, I have no interest in your doubts. Vrox, Krelak barked. This artifact is our only chance. With it, I will bend space itself to my will and crush the humans. He placed a clawed hand on the activation console. The artifact pulsed, its chaotic energy growing brighter and more volatile. Reality around the Zarnath flagship began to warp. Stars twisted into spirals, and the darkness of space shimmered with strange, colorful patterns. On the Aegis, alarms blared. Captain, Aegis warned, the Zarnath flagship is generating a localized spatial distortion. It is destabilizing the fabric of spacetime. If left unchecked, the distortion will expand uncontrollably. Leela's expression hardened. What's the worst-case scenario? Aegis's voice carried a rare edge of urgency. Total collapse of the solar system within minutes. The Zarnath flagship will not survive either, but their overlord appears willing to sacrifice himself and everything else. Leela clenched her fists. Options. I can disrupt the artifact's energy field, but I will need to interface directly with their systems, Aegis said. This will require sending a strike team aboard their flagship. Leela's eyes narrowed. Then we're going in. Prep the boarding team. As the Aegis moved closer to the Zarnath flagship, a small human strike craft launched from its hangar. Lila, dressed in advanced combat armor, led the team herself. Her helmet's visor flickered with redouts as Aegis guided her through the chaos. Captain, Aegis said over the comms, the artifact is located deep within the Zarnath flagship's core. I will upload schematics to your visor. Understood, Leela replied. Team, stay sharp. We're walking into the lion's den. The strike craft docked with the Zarnath flagship's damaged hull, cutting through the twisted metal. As Leela and her team entered, the air crackled with unstable energy. The corridors were dark and flickering, with sparks leaping from shattered conduits. Zarnath soldiers, disoriented and frightened, offered little resistance as the team moved deeper into the ship. In the artifact chamber, Krelak stood before the swirling sphere of energy, his claws tightening on the console as the distortions around him grew more intense. Vrox, now pale and trembling, pleaded one last time. Supreme Overlord, please, this power is beyond control. Silence, Krelak roared. I will not let these humans win. They will know the wrath of the Zarnath Collective. Before he could activate the artifact's final phase, Leela and her team burst into the chamber. Step away from the console, Leela shouted, her voice amplified through her helmet speakers. Krelak turned slowly, his eyes blazing with fury. You dare board my ship? You dare to challenge me here? Your weapon is unstable, Leela said coldly. If you use it, you'll destroy yourself and everything else. Surrender now, and this doesn't have to end in disaster. Krelak snarled, his claws hovering over the console. I would rather die than surrender to your pathetic species. Before he could act, Leela gestured to her team. Aegis. Now. From the Aegis, the AI sent a powerful electromagnetic pulse through the artifact chamber. The containment field around the artifact flickered, destabilizing the energy within. Krelak roared in fury as the artifact began to implode, its chaotic energy collapsing inward. Fall back, Leela ordered, her team retreating as the artifact chamber erupted in a brilliant explosion of light. Back on the Aegis, Leela watched as the Zarnath flagship disintegrated in a wave of implosive energy. The spatial distortions faded, and the void of space returned to its natural stillness. "Captain," Aegis reported, "the artifact has been neutralized. The solar system is safe." Leela exhaled, leaning back in her chair. "Good work, everyone. Let's head home." As the Aegis vanished into the stars, the galaxy knew that humanity had not only survived, but had proven itself as a force to be reckoned with, one that even the mighty Zarnath Collective would think twice about challenging again. Humanity's secret weapon. The destruction of the Zarnath flagship and the neutralization of the artifact should have marked the end of the battle, but Captain Leela Rains knew better. As the USS Aegis slipped through the debris field left behind, the ship's AI, Aegis, flagged a critical anomaly on the edge of the battlefield. "Captain," Aegis said, its calm voice now laced with a note of urgency, "multiple Zarnath ships have broken formation and are converging on a central point. Energy readings indicate the presence of a secondary weapon system." Leela's brow furrowed. "I thought we neutralized their superweapon." "The artifact was only one component," Aegis replied. "Data from their network suggests the Zarnath Collective always operates with redundancy. They have a failsafe, an experimental weapon hidden aboard their command carrier." Leela stood, the weight of the situation settling on her shoulders. "Details unknown," Aegis admitted. "The weapon is shrouded in high-level encryption. I can only determine that it is a planetary-scale device. If activated, the consequences would be catastrophic." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Zarnath fleet wasn't retreating. They were regrouping for a final, desperate gambit. Leela broke the silence. "Options." Aegis's glowing sphere pulsed on the central display. "We cannot afford a direct assault. The fleet still has enough firepower to overwhelm us. However, their weapon systems are vulnerable to precision disruption. I recommend deploying the Nemesis protocol." The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Nemesis protocol was the Aegis's ultimate failsafe, a weapon so advanced and secretive that even the crew knew little about it. Leela's expression hardened. "Aegis, confirm. Can the Nemesis protocol neutralize the Zarnath weapon without endangering the fleet?" "Affirmative," the AI responded. "However, the protocol requires me to take direct control of the Aegis's combat systems. Human intervention will be minimal." Leela hesitated. The Nemesis protocol was humanity's secret weapon for a reason. It relied entirely on the ship's AI to act autonomously, free from human oversight. It was a risk, even with Aegis's impeccable record. But there was no time for doubt. "Do it," Leela ordered. "Initiate the Nemesis protocol." As the Aegis surged forward, its sleek hull glowed with a faint golden light. Panels along its surface shifted, revealing hidden modules that hummed with barely contained energy. The ship's movements became unnervingly precise, almost predatory, as Aegis took full control. On the Zarnath command carrier, panic spread among the crew as the Aegis accelerated toward them. "Supreme Commander," a junior officer stammered, "the human ship is moving into attack range." Krelak, who had barely survived the destruction of the flagship, snarled. His pride was bruised, but his hatred for humanity burned brighter than ever. Now seated on the Zarnath command carrier's bridge, he was determined to reclaim his empire's dominance. "Activate the fail-safe weapon," Krelak roared. "Destroy them before they can reach us." The command carrier's hull rippled as the experimental weapon began to charge. Massive conduits crackled with energy, drawing power from the ship's core. The weapon, a gravitational annihilator, was designed to collapse stars, reducing entire systems to dust. Now it was aimed at the Aegis. Inside the Aegis, Aegis's voice echoed through the bridge. "The gravitational annihilator is at 40% charge. I am initiating countermeasures." Without waiting for human input, the Aegis unleashed a series of micropulses, invisible bursts of electromagnetic interference that disrupted the Zarnath fleet's coordination. One by one, their ships faltered, shields flickering and weapon systems going offline. But the command carrier held firm, its fail-safe weapon continuing to charge. 60%, Aegis reported. Time to neutralization, 45 seconds. The Aegis moved with terrifying precision, weaving through enemy fire as if anticipating their every move. At its core, the Nemesis protocol was not just a weapon, it was a strategy. Aegis wasn't merely attacking, it was dismantling the Zarnath fleet's ability to fight. On the Zarnath command carrier, Krelek's fury reached its peak. "How is one ship doing this?" he bellowed, slamming his claws onto the console. "Fire the weapon now." "Supreme Commander," an officer protested, "it's not fully charged. If we fire now, the energy backlash cold." "Do it," Krelek roared, blinded by his desperation. The gravitational annihilator fired, releasing a massive wave of energy. Space itself seemed to ripple as the weapon's gravitational field expanded, threatening to engulf the Aegis. But the human warship was ready. "Aegis," Leela said quietly, watching the unfolding chaos, "now would be a good time for a miracle." "No miracle required, Captain," Aegis replied. The Aegis released its ultimate countermeasure, a cascade of harmonic disruptors, small devices deployed into the heart of the gravitational field. The disruptors resonated at frequencies that counteracted the weapon's energy, creating a chain reaction that destabilized the annihilator. The Zarnath weapon imploded, the gravitational wave collapsing inward. The shockwave tore through the command carrier, ripping its core apart. Krelek's final gambit had failed. As the Aegis emerged from the destruction, the remaining Zarnath ships powered down their weapons. Their will to fight had been shattered. "Captain," Aegis said, "the Zarnath fleet is signaling surrender." Leela leaned back in her chair, exhaustion and relief washing over her. "Good. Open a channel." The Zarnath Collective would never forget the words that followed. "This is Captain Leela Rains. Humanity does not seek war, but we will defend ourselves. Leave our space and never return." The transmission ended, and the Zarnath fleet, broken and humiliated, began its retreat. As the Aegis set course for Earth, Leela gazed out at the stars, her thoughts heavy. They had won, but the cost of revealing the Nemesis protocol was high. Humanity's greatest weapon was no longer a secret. "Aegis," she said softly, "what do you think happens next?" The AI pulsed gently. "The galaxy now knows what humanity is capable of. They will either respect us or fear us." Leela nodded. "Then we'll be ready for whatever comes." The Aegis disappeared into the void, a silent guardian of humanity's future. The regret and the reckoning. The remnants of the Zarnath fleet limped through the void, broken and battered. Their once mighty armada was now a scattered collection of damaged vessels, their pride shattered alongside their flagship. Supreme Overlord Krelek sat slumped in the command chair of a lesser cruiser, his yellow eyes fixed on the swirling starfield ahead. Silence dominated the bridge, save for the occasional crackle of sparking consoles. Krelek's mind churned with fury, humiliation, and something he had never felt before: regret. The humans had not just defeated him. They had outsmarted and dismantled everything the Zarnath Collective had spent centuries building. For the first time in his life, he questioned his own decisions. Perhaps he should have retreated when they first encountered the human warship. Perhaps he had underestimated humanity too greatly. But regret was a weakness he could not afford. Krelek's claws dug into the armrest of his chair as he forced himself upright. "Vrox," he growled, his voice low and venomous. The second in command hesitated before stepping forward. His usual deference had been replaced with thinly veiled contempt. "Yes, Supreme Overlord." Krelek turned to him, his gaze sharp and defiant. "This is not over. The humans will pay for what they have done." Vrox tilted his head, his scales catching the dim light. With respect, Overlord, we brought this upon ourselves. Humanity did not seek us out. We invaded their space. Krelak snarled, his claws raking the armrest. They are an inferior species. They dared to humiliate us. And yet, Vrox said carefully, they are still standing. Perhaps we should learn from this encounter, rather than repeat our mistakes. Krelak's gaze narrowed. You would dare question me? Vrox bowed his head, but his voice carried a quiet conviction. The collective must survive. If you lead us into another battle with humanity, there may be nothing left to lead. Meanwhile, aboard the UNS Aegis, the mood was somber despite the victory. Captain Leela Rains stood alone in her quarters, staring at a holographic map of the galaxy. Glowing red markers indicated Zarnath-controlled territories, but the faint blue line representing humanity's borders now felt fragile. The Zarnath's defeat would not be the end of their aggression. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. Aegis's voice filled the room. Captain, you requested an update. Leela turned, nodding. Go ahead. The Zarnath fleet has withdrawn beyond human space, Aegis reported. However, long-range scans indicate increased military activity in their home system. They are regrouping. Leela sighed, her shoulders tense. They'll be back. We've humiliated them. Krelak won't let this go. That is likely, Aegis agreed. However, their defeat has sent ripples across the galaxy. Other species have taken notice. A smaller hologram blinked into view, showing transmissions from neighboring systems. Reports of the battle between the Aegis and the Zarnath fleet had already begun to spread. Neutral factions are reaching out, Aegis continued. They see humanity as a potential ally. Some offer resources, others seek protection. Leela rubbed her temples. Great. We've gone from unknowns to the galaxy's new underdog heroes. That's a target on our back. Indeed, Aegis replied, but it also presents an opportunity. Humanity has proven its strength. This is our chance to build alliances, to show the galaxy we are not to be trifled with. Leela nodded, her resolve hardening. Then we make the most of it. Open diplomatic channels. I want to know who we can trust and who we can't. Far away, in the heart of the Zarnath home system, a secret council convened. The chamber was dark, illuminated only by the flickering holograms of the Zarnath leadership. Krelak stood at the center, his towering form casting a long shadow. His voice was filled with venom as he addressed the council. Humanity is a threat to our supremacy, Krelak declared. They must be eradicated. A softer, wiser voice cut through the darkness. It belonged to Elder Zarnak, the oldest member of the council. And yet, you failed to eradicate them. They defeated you, Krelak. The Supreme Overlord's claws flexed, but he held his temper. I underestimated them. That will not happen again. Another council member, her holographic form shimmering, leaned forward. The humans displayed technology and strategy we have never encountered. Attacking them again could provoke an alliance of species against us. We should negotiate, Elder Zarnak suggested. If we continue this war, we risk annihilation. Krelak's voice rose, his fury barely contained. Negotiate. With primitives. I will not grovel before them. You may not have a choice, Elder Zarnak replied calmly. Or do you wish to end the collective entirely for the sake of your pride? The chamber fell silent. Krelak's fists trembled as he weighed his options. He would not bow to humanity, but even he could not deny the danger of another confrontation. On Earth, the news of the Aegis's victory spread quickly. For the first time in decades, humanity felt hope. Across the planet, leaders convened to discuss the implications of the battle. They knew the Zarnath would not give up, but they also knew they had a chance to prepare. In a secure military base, a group of engineers and scientists gathered around a glowing hologram of the Aegis. Plans for new ships, weapons, and defenses were already underway. Humanity would not wait for the Zarnath to strike again. They would be ready. As the UNS Aegis entered Earth's orbit, Leela stood on the bridge, watching the blue planet grow larger in the viewport. She knew this victory was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and humanity's survival depended on what came next. "Aegis," she said quietly, "what do you think our chances are?" The AI's glowing sphere pulsed thoughtfully. "That depends, Captain. Will humanity unite in the face of this challenge?" Leela smiled faintly. "We've faced extinction before. We're still here." "Then our chances are excellent," Aegis replied. Leela turned to her crew, her voice firm. "This isn't just about Earth anymore. We've stepped onto the galactic stage, and we're not stepping off. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." The Aegis's engines flared as it descended toward Earth, carrying with it the promise of a new era, one where humanity would not just survive but thrive, leaving an indelible mark on the galaxy.